Hey everyone, Seth Weiner here, your Rocktioneer. Excited to be back with you all on another Coffee Connections. For those that are familiar with the program, we're going a little bit different here. We're actually going to talk to my current clients. This is part of the current clients part of our series this season, where we're going to deep dive into their upcoming event, talk about their fund and need, and most importantly, their mission. So this is an opportunity for you to learn about the missions of the clients that we're serving, and super excited about this one because it's coming up very, very quickly. So without further ado, let me jump right into who we're talking with today. And today we're talking to Christie Simons with Atlanta Angels. Now, who are they, you're wondering? Because you know Atlanta, and everyone in Atlanta is an angel, right? Well, you could be, because the Atlanta Angels are a dedicated organization committed to supporting children, youth, and families in the foster care system. And we're going to explore their mission and the impact they're having and how they're changing lives one connection at a time. So stay tuned on that. And what's coming up is their annual gala. It's the Raise Your Wings Gala, taking place September 13th, Friday night. And this year's event promises to be a night to remember because we're talking about a fun 70s glam theme, including live music, dancing, dinner, cocktails, and of course, a live auction and fun to need. It's going to be held at one of my favorite venues to work, 42 West in Atlanta, and guests are encouraged to come dressed in their best 70s glam. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome Christie. Hi.
Hey Seth.
How you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing good. All things gala on the mind.
You're like, yeah, let's make this fast. I got a million things to do. Noted. We'll do recordings for clients much earlier than the week before their event. But Coffee Connections got to start by talking about coffee. Do you drink coffee?
I do. I drink coffee every day.
Okay, well, good. Hopefully you had some and you're fired up for this this chat here. Do you have a favorite mug do you use?
So I actually collect mugs. I have a huge collection at home, and I have a few here in my office. I'll grab
one. Oh, let's check that out. I didn't even notice those there. Look at that.
So this was actually a gift from another executive director of a nonprofit. It says Be the Change. It's butterflies. And our last core value is transformation. We believe that our programs, or we know that our programs are creating transformation in the foster care community, and butterflies are such a cool example of transformation. So this is one of my favorites here in my office.
I love that. And also that it's butterflies doing the transformation as opposed to bees being the transformation. So that's nice. Coffee. Are you a Starbucks, Dunkin' type of person or a home brew?
We do like to brew at home. We actually have friends that own a local coffee shop in Atlanta, East Pole Coffee. And so we subscribe. We're in one of their clubs and get it shipped to us every month.
All right. And are you drip or French press, or what do you do? Slow pour?
We do pour over and we do drip some days.
Yeah. Pour over is great. It's actually really good for the morning, just to kind of slowly pour it in and kind of get your day going. And if you're a meditator, maybe, it takes 30 minutes. No, I'm kidding.
Right. It's good for the weekend. It's not good for a quick morning.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to hand it to you. Tell us about Atlanta Angels.
Sure. So Atlanta Angels, like you said, our mission is to consistently wrap support around children, youth, and families experiencing foster care. And I always like to explain a little bit about why we even need to exist when there is a foster system. So what a lot of people are surprised to learn is that over 50% of foster homes will close within the first 6 months to a year of opening. And most often that's just because they're overwhelmed and under-supported. But what that means for kids in foster care is that every time a home closes, any children who are placed in that home now have to move. And children end up moving several times, up to dozens of times while they're in the system. And every move is not only a new trauma, but it sets them back, research shows, 4 to 6 months developmentally and academically. And it really just compounds the trauma that they experienced before entering the system. And so what our programs do is wrap holistic support around fostering families so that they can continue to foster. And then the kind of trickle down effect of that is that kids experience higher placement stability when they're in those homes. So in our Love Box program, that's where our case manager is matching a volunteer with a local foster family to wrap that holistic support around them on a monthly basis. Oftentimes this looks like babysitting, bringing meals, really kind of just doing life with them based on their needs that specific month. Our Dare to Dream program is a little bit more individualized. In our Dare to Dream program, we're matching youth at risk of aging out of foster care with a mentor for one-on-one support to really be that healthy adult walking alongside them as that they navigate the teenage years, growing up, and ultimately aging out of foster care. And what we see is that these programs, this relational support, makes such a huge difference. I mentioned 50% of foster homes close within the first year of opening. What we've seen is that over 3 years of doing our programs here in Atlanta, 98% of our foster families have remained open homes over that 3-year period of time. Over the past year, 90% of our kids have experienced placement stability. We've seen an 89% over a 3-year period of time graduation rate for kids in our Dare to Dream program. That's versus 84% for the average kid in the state of Georgia and 50% for youth aging out of foster care. So just really phenomenal outcomes. And again, the heart of what we do is relational. It's building these consistent relationships. It's showing up consistently, telling the families, telling the youth, we're here, we believe in you. We're not going anywhere, right? They've experienced so much instability. And so it's just been such a privilege to be able to walk alongside these incredible families, these super resilient, amazing kids, and get to step into their lives and their stories in this way.
No, that's just that's wonderful, but also scary to know these stats. That's kind of eye-opening. How many years have you all been in existence?
So we launched in 2020. Really great timing to launch a nonprofit.
Yeah. What's your story? How did you come about starting this?
Yeah, so I'm an adoptive mom through foster care myself. Adopted our little girl through Cherokee County DFACS here in Georgia, and knew some about what the experience was like, and just continue to learn and see more. It was a 3-year process for us. And through that time, saw the lack of support, the lack of resources. I experienced so many times feeling just incredibly alone, feeling like I was fighting against a system, even though we had shared goals. I remember so vividly a court date when all of our family was there for my now daughter, Riley, and the judge asked all of us to stand. And when we did, he pointed out that for most of the kids in and out of his courtroom throughout each day, there aren't 2 rows of adults there for them. And he referred to how lucky Riley was. And my heart just broke because that didn't feel lucky to me. That felt like what every single child deserves. And that's what I believe that every child deserves. And so, a few years later, after we had finalized the adoption, I was reflecting on an experience. We were going to a Braves game, one of our favorite things to do as a family, and thinking how glad I was that she gets to grow up with these memories and experiences, and kind of immediately thought about the thousands of kids still in foster care whose story is very different from hers and who don't grow up with tons of happy memories and solid connections and lots of family and relationships, but with that continued instability and trauma and really hard memories, and wanted to do something to change that, and just knew that alone I couldn't do that much, right? We could maybe adopt a couple more kids, but there are 3,000 children in foster care in Metro Atlanta on any given day. And we could have a bigger impact if more of the community got involved. And so a few months later, learned about National Angels. We're a local chapter of a national nonprofit. And when I learned about their mission and what they were doing, it was so aligned with what I was trying to start here. I figured, why reinvent the wheel, and began the process of launching a local chapter.
Okay, well, that's something I wasn't aware that there was. I thought this was just you. So there's a national, and how
Mhm.
large is the national? Is it just a couple different locations, or are we talking about?
No, we have 18 chapters across the country.
Wow,
Mhm.
wonderful. And in this type of environment, are you working with a lot of CASA organizations as well?
We have worked with CASA. We actually have some volunteers who are former CASA
Mm-hmm.
volunteers. I think the really beautiful thing about our program is the relational aspect. And so sometimes we have CASA volunteers who say, I want to be in court less and I just want to spend more time with the kids. And
Uh-huh.
but yeah, we love partnering with them. They're a great organization.
Yeah, I asked because they were a guest on my podcast yesterday, which we're going to be releasing soon,
Okay.
and that was in Boulder, and then I ended up having a conversation with one in Athens who has an event coming up, uh,
Hmm.
and and then I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, well, gosh, I work with a lot of like foster and adoption organizations. I wonder why. I'm like, oh, it's because my son's adopted, and that's where my heart's
Oh,
at.
amazing.
So
Yeah.
you tend to do things that you care about,
Hmm.
obviously, as you're
Hmm.
doing.
Yep.
Um, so every time these kids move in foster care, it's more and more trauma.
Hmm.
And can you talk a little bit more about what you're doing to help those kids with the trauma?
Yeah. So both of our programs are everything we do is based on an evidence based model called TBRI, which stands for Trust Based Relational Intervention. And what we know is that trauma impacts the brain. When kids don't grow up with that security of knowing when I cry, an adult is there, or learning appropriate modeling of how to manage emotions and just that consistent relationship and safety, it changes their brain. And so they have this trauma response. And the really amazing thing about the brain is that it's malleable. It's the plasticity of the brain says that we can kind of change it back, right? And
Hmm.
so healthy connections do that, even if in the early days that wasn't modeled for them, it can be later on. And so in trust-based relational intervention, there's an emphasis on providing felt safety and modeling mindfulness, modeling healthy relationship. Really, the number one thing I tell volunteers this all the time is consistency. And so even if, especially in our, Dare to Dream program, we're working with teenagers, sometimes there's a feeling like my mentee doesn't like me, or they don't really seem to be that into hanging out with me. Um, the power is in showing up no matter what, right? Showing up even when they make poor choices, or even when it feels like it's not making that big a difference. Because the unfortunate truth is that kids in foster care are used to people not continuing to show up, right? They're used
Hmm.
to instability, they're used to people leaving.
Hmm.
And so they're going to test that. And when you can continue to show up and be that healthy connection for them, it just makes such an incredible difference. Um, and so that's, kind of the biggest piece of it. We also offer really practical support. So we have an emergent needs and enrichment fund. We can, provide household supplies. Actually, the foster mom who's going to be the keynote speaker at the gala, a story she tells all the time is that when there was the formula shortage, they accepted a newborn placement from the hospital in foster care into their home, and they were sent home with nothing, no formula, and they couldn't find it. And they called us, and we were able to get it to them within, I think, a day. Um, and so meeting those really practical needs helps them to be able to focus on the parenting, right? Um, so it's that really wraparound holistic support, meeting them where they are, providing those really basic needs. And then for the foster parents, providing that emotional and social support as well, being a friendly listening ear who understands the experience of foster care. And that's something we hear from foster parents all the time is most people don't understand. Most people don't know what it's like, and they feel really alone in fostering. And so having a volunteer and a case manager who is checking in on them, who is providing some empathy and who is connecting them with resources and advocating for them makes a huge difference in their longevity and their ability to continue fostering.
And it takes a unique type of person to be a foster parent and be willing to devote their lives. I mean, it's you're taking in kids that, like you said, this could be their third, fourth, fifth time in a foster care. Some of them are being split up, but hopefully not being split, but sometimes that does happen from siblings. Some of them are getting aged out and not the easiest to deal with because they don't feel secure and safe. And so it takes a lot for a family. You also mentioned that for the to become a foster parent. Now I know this because to go through the adoption process with my son, I had to take the course and the whole deal. And I wasn't, I mean, it was my son is my ex-wife's cousin's son. So it was through the family, and it was, think it'd be easy, but it's not. The more that, the easier it is, the more you have to advocate because you're a file that's easy. Like they're just not they're just not, okay, they're fine. And so if you're not fighting, it's for these kids, it's really hard. So knowing how frustrating of a process it could be for someone that truly just wants to foster, they don't know who they're going to get. I have a home and we've got room for one more or two more to help out. What are you doing to make it easier, the process easier from your experience?
Yeah, so we don't license foster parents. We come in and support once they're fostering or if they're a kinship placement. So maybe they're a family, relative, kind of like you mentioned. And we wrap that support around them, ideally from the beginning. So once they become licensed. I think that the point, though, about how hard it is to become licensed is a really powerful piece of how shocking it is that so many are closing so quickly, right? Because the process to become licensed and open your home is a 6-month to a year-long process. And so just as quickly, they're then closing their home because of how hard it is. And so what we are doing is offering all those resources, offering that support, anything from additional trainings for their foster parent license to just community support. We offer events. We do love boxes, which are like care packages or gift baskets, meals. Again, in that love box program, they're getting that really consistent support that's relational. So a couple things that make us different is one, each match is managed by one of our case managers. So they have professional support, advocacy, and a link to additional resources. It also helps to provide that consistency and training and support for volunteers. The other thing is that they're matched with 1 or 2 love box leaders. So it's the same person going into the home every time. It's not, yeah, as a foster parent, you could get a call anytime, right? From DFACS with the caseworker, you've got behavior, you've got all these different people coming in and out of your home. And so we want to provide, again, that consistency. You really can't build relationships. There's a phenomenal book called What Happened to You that talks a lot about trauma. And in it, he says it takes 10 trust-based interactions to begin to build a trust-based relationship. And so think about our volunteers being matched. They do commit to a year in the Love Box program, showing up at least once a month, in Dare to Dream at least twice a month. But you think about in the Love Box program, if a volunteer is coming into the home and interacting with the family and the kids once a month, it takes almost that year to really build a solid relationship. And so it's that one-on-one and that relational aspect is something that makes us so different. It's not a group of people with somebody different coming in and out all the time. Their case manager is consistent. Their volunteer is consistent. But I want to touch on a couple other things you mentioned, Seth. Sibling groups is a huge challenge in foster care. Oftentimes sibling groups are split up. And a really sweet thing that our programs allow is for those siblings to see each other. So outside of our Love Box and Dare to Dream, the intensely one-on-one relational support, we also hold larger scale events for our families. And one of the really beautiful things that can happen at those is that siblings who have been split up, if both the families are in our programs, they come and they're able to see each other. And not only siblings, but you can imagine a child in foster care if they've been in 3 different homes and there were other kids in one of those homes, they may have developed a relationship, right? If they're not a biological sibling, they have no kind of rights to see them anymore. And so being able to come to one of our events and reconnect with someone that they had developed a sweet relationship with is such a cool thing that our programs allow. You had mentioned one other thing I wanted to touch on. Now it's slipping my mind, but
well, and maybe it'll come back. But let's talk about the event coming up. Raise Your Wings Gala. And we're hoping people raise their, not just wings, but their paddles being their wings, because we want to raise a lot of money. Talk about, what are we raising the money for during our Fund and Need this week or next week?
Yeah. So our programs work so well. The word of mouth spread really quickly. And we've got right now over 200 kids on our wait list waiting to be matched in our Love Box and our Dare to Dream programs. And because we offer that practical support, we have the case management support. It costs, right, a lot of money for us to support each of these kids. Our kind of really direct out the door cost for each child is about $600 a year. And so our goal is to get 200 of our kids on our wait list supported for a whole year so that we can get them matched in our programs and get that consistent relational support for them.
And we're going to do that. And folks, if you're not attending, you can make a donation online by going to atlantaangels.org. atlantaangels.org. Make a donation there. Definitely consider doing that. And you can also go there for volunteer opportunities and learning more about the organization. Yeah, I'm really excited. There's going to be a great live auction. It sounds like it's going to be quite the party. Looking at the photos, as you saw in the front end of the video here, and yeah, it looks like you all went all out in the 20s regalia last year. So discoing it up should be a lot of fun. Is there anything that we didn't cover you wanted to share?
I'm going to share a story of one of our matches that kind of captures everything that I've talked about. So we had a family who was new to fostering. They had recently opened their homes. They had accepted a sibling set of 2 girls into their home. And a few months in, they were already feeling overwhelmed, feeling unsure if they could continue to do it, and considering closing their home. They were referred to us and matched in our Love Box program. They were matched in January and in December. So after a full year of being matched in our Love Box program, the girls were reunified with BioMom, which is the goal. Come to find out, the 2 girls are part of a sibling set of 10. So they had been split into several different homes. Those 2 girls were the only ones in a home supported by the Love Box program. And they were the only 2 out of the 10 who experienced a stable placement for their entire year in foster care. Every other sibling had to move. The girls not only had that stability throughout their year in foster care, but their Love Box leader, their volunteer, who they had come to begin to call grandma, they were so close to her, was able to follow them back to through their reunification and continue that relationship with them. So it provided that relational stability, not just for that year, but as they made that tradition back home. Those foster parents who were thinking about closing their home just a few months in, 3 years later, are still foster parents and are now pursuing the adoption of the little girl currently in their home.
Oh, that's wonderful. So it really does make a difference, as you can see. That's something special. It's got to feel really good when you hear stories like that, as opposed to the closings and what have you.
Yeah. It's a tough world to be in, but there's so much hope in our programs and so much incredible resilience and awesome outcomes.
Indeed. Well, I'm looking forward to meeting your volunteers next week and connecting with everyone and raising a lot of money so that we can continue building more Love Boxes and Dare to Dream, continue the program and developing it. So thank you so much for what you do and taking your good experience and turning that into something that's helping so many more. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
And before I let you go, I always end my program by asking the organizations, hey, is there another nonprofit organization here in Atlanta that you'd like to recommend to be a guest on Coffee Connections?
Well, sticking with the theme of what we do, there's a really great organization up in Cherokee County, which is the county that I adopted through, called the Children's Haven. They offer a safe space for visits with bio parents. They have the CASA program through there, do a lot of really great work.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate that. And we look forward to having them as a guest if they'd like to be. And again, AtlantaAngels.org. Thank you all so very much. Christie, thank you for your time. And we'll see you all again here at Coffee Connections.